Welcome to this edition of Easy Street Garage. We're going to do some cut, buffing, and... Hey guys, welcome back to Easy Street Garage. We're in studio number 2 today. We're going to talk a little bit about polishing. I know, wait a minute, hold on before you tune out. You know what? We all have opinions. They're like elbows. But I've got some things today that I think will be helpful. We're going to talk a little bit about power. We're going to talk about polishers. And then we're going to move on. We're going to talk a little bit about compounds and the pads. Why? Well, because if you underpower your polisher that's drawing a tremendous amount of current, you're going to burn up the polisher or you're going to shorten the life of it. I use the Torque 10F. That's the polisher I have, and I chose to use a 5-inch backing plate, the hook and loop, so I can just affix my pads to it. And I've also gone to the softer compound or softer backing plate, if you would. That way I can, I can get into some, really tough spots on the vehicle as I'm polishing it. Digital, all right? I love this thing because when I flip the switch, it's off. The first plus button I hit brings the meter up, the digital meter up, and it starts to operate. And that's just really the right speed for me to kind of move some product around on the substrate or on my paint, right? The next piece of the puzzle is then I can start to increase my speed. And while I'm increasing my speed, I don't have to look to the side of the polisher, because if you think about it, most of the speeds are on the side over here where the thumb is, and you forget where you're at sometimes. With this buffer, you get a digital display on here and you can see exactly where you are in the process. So as you get toward the end of your pattern and you want to shut the unit off, then you just shut it off and you're good to go. When you restart this buffer, really cool, it doesn't start at the speed you last had set into the buffer. It starts at 0. There are 3 main pads that I use depending on the paint condition, right? Think about paint, by the way, guys, as skin. It just kind of gets old after a while and starts to get dry, and it needs conditioning, right? And that's exactly what the compounds behind me are going to do and the pads are going to do. It's going to put some conditioning back into your paint. It's going to bring it back to life. So let's talk about the different colors up here. You'll see an orange, you'll see green, you'll see white. I have some others which are heavier cutting pads up here. I don't use them often, but I have them in my arsenal in case I need them, right? So normally I start out with an orange pad. It's basically kind of a heavy cutting pad. And when I start with this pad, what I typically do when I go to the different formulas or different compounds of waxes, and again, I use Chemical Guys because they're very informative. I know them well, and their products do perform. Their service is amazing. I said that already. All right, let's take a look here, because what I'm using is I've basically got the V series of compounds that I use from Chemical Guys. And normally where I like to start is somewhere in the middle. If I start in the middle, then I can get a good idea once I put a sample patch down on the vehicle whether or not it's going to work. If it's not going to work, then I back up a little bit and I go a little more aggressive. So I'd rather start in the middle as opposed to too aggressive, because then you're just wasting time. And I don't want to waste time, even though I do really enjoy doing this kind of stuff. Okay, so normally what you've got from Chemical Guys is you've got these V compounds, V32, 34, 36, 38, and then they also have an SS, which I don't use typically because, quite frankly, it's not too far off from the V38, okay? So normally where I like to start is right here in the middle This is V36. It is a cutting compound. It works really well with this orange pad. So V36 in orange, it's a great place to start. I will tell you that if you get to a point where you finish a sample patch on your beginning, on your starter patch, and you see that you're not getting the job done, okay, then you can also at that point go back and cut maybe with a V34, right? So now that you go back to that point, you find it cuts and it does a great job, then that's a great starting point. If you really, really want to get aggressive, then you can cut to this V32, and it does then take away some heavy scratches that might be in the surface of your paint. So with that said, this is where we're going to start today on my F250 that we're going to roll into the studio here in a moment. And then the next piece of the puzzle is, after we're finished cutting and buffing the vehicle with that compound, then we're going to go to the V38. This is a finishing compound. It works really well. And the pad that I'm going to go to basically at that point is I'm going to go all the way to this medium, the medium pad. And so this makes a really good combination right here. Okay guys, we're ready. Before you get started, one piece of advice I have for you, and you may already know this, but if you've got any black rough vinyl on your vehicle like I do on this F250 up along the edge here, you need to tape all of these critical edges that you see around here off. I have a stool, little roll around guy. If you're gonna spend a long day or afternoon cut and polishing a vehicle like this F250, you're gonna need something to sit on. You're gonna get tired. A microfiber that I'm gonna use to wipe off the cutting compound, and then I'm gonna go and I'm gonna move from this weave of microfiber to a Korean weave once I put my final polish on this thing. So I'm just gonna put a spot on as needed to kind of prime the pad here. So I've got 4 spots on my pad. Got a little bit of priming going on here on the pad, and we're gonna get started on this side. That's right. We got the back end cut. We got it buffed. It looks absolutely amazing outside in the sun. No swirl marks. You know, I take this thing through a car wash and I've got all the foaming stuff. I've got everything here. I'll probably never do that again now that I've spent just 2 hours. Okay, Easy Street Garage, it is finished. 4.5 hours of cut and buffing. You know, I was fortunate enough, I didn't have to go that deep in the cut. So it was one cut and then buffed out. But out here in the sunlight, guys, this thing is absolutely flawless. Probably looks better than when I drove it off the showroom floor. I am so happy. Hey guys, that was a lot of fun. You know, 6.5, 7 hours of cut and polishing a F250 black at that was a ton of work. Most people would say you're absolutely out of your mind. However, you're right, I am out of my mind and I love it. Hey, listen, it was fun. That's my hobby. That's what I love to do. And so what did I get out of this? There were a couple learning processes that came out of it. First of all, I want to comment that I did talk a lot about Chemical Guys. They do not sponsor me. They have not paid for the products I have, nor did they discount these products to me. I purchase everything that I review and that you see. So what did we do? Where did we come out? What are the pros, cons? What did I learn from this whole process? Well, I learned quite a bit about pads, right? And the biggest thing I learned about was cleaning pads. So I had used a couple other processes in the past, but you know what? I found the best way to clean pads is not to put them on my buffer and run them up against the grit guard in a in a bucket, which a lot of people do. I think the best way to clean these pads are just soap and water, and that's it. Lukewarm water, and soap them up a bit and rinse them out, and you know what? These things are like brand new. So I've destroyed some pads using the grit guard concept. I'm not doing that anymore. So I'm going to stay with my own learning process and do what's best. I also think that probably out of the pads I use, I have a pretty good inventory of different pads. I use the orange the most, but the white is probably also a little bit softer, and it worked well for the finish, buffing that I did. And then there's also the black pad, which is really more of a waxing pad. So these are my go-to pads right here. So if anybody's looking to get into doing their own, polishing on their vehicles, get a good inventory of orange, white, and then maybe one black pad, and then use those two. For sure, whatever you're doing, always have a conditioner. Some people just use water. However, Chemical Guys does produce a conditioner, which really other people would call a lube for the pad. So this is a definite go-to. The two compounds that I used for the F250 again was the 36, and I used this as my aggressive cutting polish, if you would. I will submit that I do know the difference between cutting up, in a car and then just compounds like this. Okay, so I know I'm not really cutting into the paint to remove the impurities or the imperfections. However, that's what they call this product, so that's why I'm using that term cutting. So this is a cutting grade polish. It's the V36. I used it first. They also make the V34, the V32. I have used those two also, and I think that they work well. And then I did my finish, polish or whatever you want to call it, as the 38, the V38, and it worked really well. I am going to put a honey wax on this vehicle. It got late last night. I didn't finish that. I'm going to get to it here in the next day or so, just to put a protection on top of the paint. But boy, I tell you what, as soon as I drove home last night, it rained. It rained, and I was like, no! But you know what? I got up this morning, and that thing is beating like you wouldn't believe. I'm so happy. I drove it into the shop today, into the studio, and it's still beating out there. So I think it's a lot of fun. I'll put that finish wax on it, a little bit of Carnauba to protect it, and I'm done for the season. And I don't think I'll take it through a car wash again this season. I'll go ahead and do my CS spotless wash right out here outside of the studio. So with that said, guys, thank you so much for jumping in on this edition of Easy Street Garage. We appreciate y'all's subscriptions. And if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. We're going to continue to bring content now that we're almost to the back end of this pandemic that's going on. And I know that there's a lot of gatherings, car shows that will start to happen in July and August, and possibly even in June. But we're going to continue to keep going with some of these improvement videos. So what I'd like you to do is right down here in the corner of the screen right there, That is a watermark. If you toggle on that, you will be subscribed to Easy Street Garage. Please do that. Hit the thumbs up, share. So like, share, subscribe, all those things, please, because we need those subscriptions to try to get to 1,000 subscribers here at Easy Street Garage. So until next time, this is Easy Street Garage, and I'd like to again say thank you for tuning in, but we're out. Boom.